Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Nikki Westcombe. We are the founders of Nexus Performance. Joining us on this wild ride is our heavyweight coaching team, ready to unleash their expertise to solve any problems in your journey to getting strong and jacked.
Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
So pump up the volume and let's get into this.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, are we?
Fuck, I'm eating my carrot.
Continue
Don't
eating
spray
carrot.
it.
Continue choking on your carrot. You're going to be catching up to me in terms of carrots.
I'm a healthy carrot eating boy.
Today we have Dan Casson over here. He is visiting from the UK.
He stole the captain's chair.
He is. He's sitting in what's my chair, but he's allowed to have it as an international visitor.
Yeah, I guess we'll allow it.
And
I haven't even been allowed it. I had to wait for William to leave the country. And then Alex tried to take it from me, and I was like, brother, kidding yourself.
I guess now as head coach, you've got first dibs on it, haven't you?
Yeah.
I had
You
first
can pull
dibs.
rank.
I had first dibs before it was bloody. Alex sitting in that chair wasn't going to, you got to fill the chair out.
It's true.
Shout out Alex.
But you've been traveling around Australia for a long time.
Yeah, it feels like a long time.
I feel like you live here now, honestly.
If only.
I was about to say traveling's a very generous term.
Yeah.
Traveling around Australia is a very generous term. I think you stayed pretty much on the on the east coast the whole time.
Oh,
Yeah,
most
pretty
people do. Nobody goes in the. Well, definitely don't go in the middle, but then some people go to.
I'd like to go to Uluru.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Climb the rock.
not any. No, you're not allowed anymore.
Yes, so just look at a rock.
I reckon.
Look at a rock from a distance.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd
Safe
look at the rock.
distance.
Christ.
But yeah, where have you been?
Steaming up.
Don't need to be seeing you guys for that, I
Tell
guess.
us about Australia.
Yeah, it's been a hell of an experience. So we set off from Manchester in early November. Stopped in Dubai for 3 days. That was an experience.
Okay. Yep.
And then went to Bali.
Mhm.
Was there for 5 days. That was ridiculously humid.
Yep.
It's good.
As it is.
Yeah. Again, first time being over this side of the world, and
Just full relax mode there. Just chill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And then went down to Sydney. Had a week in Sydney. That was really good.
Yeah. What'd you like about Sydney?
Yeah,
They have a bridge.
they do have a bridge.
And a house that has looks weird.
Yeah, it was.
More touristy for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It felt more like home than previous.
As in
places.
like a city.
Yeah, but it didn't even feel like we expected it to feel more like London, and it definitely didn't. Not even close. So
Right.
it was a change of pace again from Bali, but not quite as much of a shock as we expected.
Yeah, Bali to Sydney is a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not quite as much as like going from Bali to London.
Yeah. Just not as fast. Just not as many people. Not as crammed.
Yeah, 100%, and still tons more green than we expected.
Yeah.
Not as many cool buildings.
True. And,
Isn't that the whole purpose of London? Just cool buildings? Big Ben.
I mean, there's
London
more to
Bridge.
London than Big Ben and London Bridge for sure.
When you're looking at it from a tourist perspective, of course that's all you see. You see the touristy shit.
yeah, but like outside of the touristy shit, that's what we kind of expected, and that's not what we got,
That's fair.
which is good.
But what did you enjoy most in Sydney?
Do you know what? It feels like it was so long ago.
Yeah.
It's all just kind of blurring into one.
Yeah.
But it was just a nice change of pace, and it felt more like being at home. We were able to go, head down to Bondi Beach, go and do a few things while we were in Sydney as well, so that was nice.
Mhm.
But then, obviously, we were from a week in Sydney. We headed up here. Been here since the 26th of November, I think.
Mhm.
On the Gold
Fair
Coast.
while.
Yeah. Feels like a lot longer, but also like we've only been here a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it feels very short.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels like it's flown by at the same time.
And why did you want to spend time here?
Well, like we know you guys are down here, and obviously.
So it's just us.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely the main
Come to
goal.
Australia, stay for us. We should be the marketing for Australia now.
Visit Australia because Nexus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It work.
Yeah, but obviously, like you've, I I don't know, through conversations with you, you've enjoyed your time there on the Gold Coast. What do you see? Like in my mind, when I think of Sydney compared to here, there are a few obvious differences. But what are what do you prefer here versus somewhere like Sydney?
The pace. It's definitely slower than Sydney.
Yeah.
It's definitely more green. It feels more relaxed than definitely in Sydney.
Yeah.
And do you know what? That's generally it. Like
More tornadoes.
Yeah, the weather.
You got to be here for
the
our
weather
tornado.
was not what we expected. That's for sure. Like the idea of like when people talk about Australia back home, it's like, oh, it's sunny all the time. You never see a cloud in the sky. Christmas week, we had power outages, tornado, tropical cyclone aftermath, flash flooding.
Yeah,
you name it.
Yeah.
Back home, they've got a little bit of snow, and that's a bit extreme for the UK.
Yeah, but we just wanted to give you the full experience of Australia. Like we thought, you know what? We'll give you the Australian experience. This is an Australian summer experience.
While still being really hot.
Yeah, it's mad.
At least you didn't get the fires. The fires would have made it the full experience.
I mean, there's time yet.
Yeah, true. Not much, though. You head home soon.
True. Yeah, so we leave from here on Friday to go to Melbourne for a week. And then on the 19th, we fly home with a delightful 23-hour flight home.
Yeah.
Why are you going to Melbourne for a week?
Because it's easier to get from there to home, and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
That's fair.
The case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
significantly cheaper than flying from here to Sydney to home.
And what brought you to Australia?
It's always been on the list to do. And with Bryony finishing a corporate job, that was the time to do it. We could take as much time as we needed to do it. And before things start kicking back up a gear when we get home for work. And that was the time to do it. So
makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think we should probably give the people at home an understanding as to who Dan is. We've just started chatting about his time in Australia. Everyone's just probably like,
Dan?
Yeah. All right. Dan.
So
who are you?
I'm a strength and conditioning coach from back home. I do from the UK, I should say. I teach powerlifting, strongman, general hypertrophy, the whole lot. We run a business called Hart Performance. Yeah, that's about it.
How do you know us?
I was a client of Will's many, many years ago, and I'm with Mickey for nutrition at the moment. And just chatted to Josh online. Online friends.
Online friends.
Wow.
I nearly said it before that, like, I remember when you first messaged me and were like, yeah, I'm coming over for this. And I was like thinking to myself, what the fuck is this bloke flying from the UK for our Nexus Strongman event?
Yeah.
That's like a piss take at the pub car park.
It's a prestige title.
That we're going to have at the pub car park just around the corner.
I will say that wasn't the intention to come down to do that.
No, don't lie. Don't backtrack now.
The intention wasn't to come and poke Honza, make him push himself to tear his pec.
And pass it out.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's just part of the fun. Yeah, but you also did the mentorship.
Yeah,
and have done a bunch of stuff.
We did that intake together.
And we did.
Yeah,
done a lot of
that's how it became
stuff together in terms of just talking a lot of business, talking a lot of shop, talking a lot of working it out, the UK scene versus the Australian scene, and from my understanding, it is a bit different. I mean, powerlifting's powerlifting, and strongman's strongman, and people within powerlifting, in my experience in the world, are similar people.
Yeah, 100%.
But we're a different breed. But what would you say are the biggest differences between the UK and Australian scene in terms of like powerlifting, strength scene?
I would say here it's definitely more accessible. Like you don't go to a town in the UK.
Like gyms or
gyms, competitions, left, right, and centre, and it's definitely growing still in the UK. A friend of mine, Adam, he's just set up WRPF in the UK, and he's got cross federation qualification now, so you can qualify for WRPF as well as the ABPU or WPC comps, and that kind of like inter-fed crossover we've never had before. There's also not been so much of like feds working together to improve the sport. It's been very much kind of one fed and then the rest kind of pushed off to one side. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely growing in that more unionized approach, I guess.
We were the same.
Yeah.
We were the same. I mean, I mean, there's always that untested, tested divide that everybody's aware of, and everywhere in the world is, either I think is burdened with.
Yeah.
But then, it's improved here massively in terms of like people being able to jump between different federations and do invite meets and just the rise of that sort of the side of the sport.
And Adam's working on what is called the NSO series, which is going to be like the English version of like the ABS Pro kind of thing. So like invite comps, working on developing that side of things. We don't have really anything like that in the UK. So we're probably about 3 or 4 years behind where you guys are, but it's trending in that right direction, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I would say, like, I haven't been over to that side of the world yet, but when I went to both times I went to America and traveled over there, when it comes to the gym scene and the accessibility of strength training, it's there. Like, you can find it, but it was way harder to find than I expected.
Yeah.
Because the gyms, like power strength gyms, are more abundant and more decked out and easier than here than what they are there. Like, I can go to Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, here, like anywhere, and even most kind of decently built up cities in Australia, and find at least one nice, like well built out, kind of strength orientated gym. Whereas some of the cities in America I went to, I was like, fuck, I've Googled like Bob's Shed, and then when you get there, it's like you're like, I don't know if I'm in the right place. Yeah, and it's just
it's literally really, Bob's Shed. Bob's just throwing it onto Google Maps, and you just get to go and hang out in his shed for the day.
Yeah, I was really surprised. But how is it over there in terms of that? Like, it's still a bit of that.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like, if you want to travel to like a good gym, you will probably have to put some mileage in. But like here, in comparison to back home, you've got more gyms here in the same area than what we have. And generally speaking, like when we were in Sydney, we went to World Gym with Josh Robinson, and you just casually had a safety bar from Elite FTS in it, an axle bar, really good quality bars and calibrated plates in a commercial gym.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of those
unheard of.
A lot of the world gyms are doing that in a lot more now.
Even a lot of the bigger, newer world's gyms and a couple of they'll have like a monolift and a competition bench press and like a deadlift bar in them as well. Calibrated plates and stuff. That's probably a little bit too far. You won't find that in many, but
that's definitely popping up in more and more.
Yeah, you'll see them in a bit.
I think with the rise of powerlifting within Australia, it's definitely becoming more prevalent. Like, it's way easier now to find.
Oh god, yeah.
A gym even in smaller towns, like smaller places, there's just like a random strength gym and they've got some decent equipment.
I think also, like, one thing to think about is, like, it's always been a relatively accessible sport. You only need a bar and plates, really. Yeah, you can get away.
You can do it
you can do it with just a straight bar. But I think now it's so accessible to train at such a high standard with calibrated plates, with the right bars. It's now so much more accessible than it was 10 years ago.
Yep.
But slowly, I guess, commercial gyms will see that value in buying the right kit. I remember when I started doing powerlifting, it was a case of, oh, well, we've got these 99-pound barbells and these rubberized plates that could be 2.5 to 5 kilos out either way. And you have no idea and they're not even the right size. Like, they're not quite 45 centimeters. They're like 42.
Yeah.
So every rep's a deficit rep anyway.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I used to train on that.
And I don't miss those ages at all.
Speaking on that, give us a little bit of a history about you within the sport, or like,
So I got
just lift your mic up a bit.
Oh god, okay.
You didn't really give us much before. You just said you're a coach, and that's it.
Yeah. So started training after I finished uni. Started lifting in when I got my first job as a PT. Got into powerlifting that way after meeting a guy who I think he's benched over 225 kilos in every age and weight class for the last 40 years.
Sick.
Yeah. Andy Rigby's a monster. He's benching 227.5 kilos at 60 years old, as you do. And got into the sport that way. Started getting coached by Dan Green. So that was my first coach. That was a
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like that was a wild first experience.
How much weight did you cut? Nah.
None.
Oh, come on.
He did.
Not trying hard enough.
I think it was for Boss of Bosses 3 that I went out to go and do in 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
He had me cut 6 kilos through water for that.
Love
that
it.
was not fun at all.
Dan loves a good weight cut.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing him for that, for Boss of Bosses 3. He was sat in his car wearing bin bags in the aircon full blast in peak summer. Yeah. He's like, what? He rocks up the comp just looking like death. I'm like, how is he going to compete the next day? He still did.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think he walked away with a 375 squat or whatever and missed casually on breaking Cohen's record for the deadlift.
Fucking hell.
It's ridiculous.
Those are good times.
Yes. And it's coming back now a little bit that way as well, isn't it? With some of the older lifters coming back.
What's that?
Some of the older lifters are like Zahir coming back, Eric Lillybridge coming back.
I don't think we'll see a Dan return very soon.
He's going for the Masters records, apparently.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. When there's records up for grabs.
100%. So started lifting in 2013, 2014. Got stuck into it from there. Been lifting all the time since then. Had a couple of like pullbacks and push forwards as you do. Life takes over, but a little bit. But last comp was August this year. 270 squat, which we've been after for a while. And then
sleeved?
Yes. Not putting wraps until I put 300 on my back yet, so
I'm the opposite. I'm only putting wraps on to put 300 on my back.
Well, we might have to have a competition over here then, and
No.
in time. There's time yet. Like, let me get through this strongman
the rest of this
week.
We've got 3 days to squat 300.
And you were coaching from the start of that, like roughly, like straight into.
So I did.
Like when Dan coached you, like were you coaching at that point?
No, I'd got 2 years under my belt before I even started offering coaching because I had no idea what I was doing.
Doesn't stop a lot of people.
Yeah, I've been around people that have done like one comp and they've still got no idea what to do with themselves.
Yeah,
and they're just like copy and pasting whatever their coach has given them.
Yeah,
which is super ethical.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to have an understanding. It's not a complicated sport, but at the same time, you need to understand it to a degree.
Yep.
But I think like over the years, there's definitely like been a shift towards knowing more, and I think more people are coming into now.
Mm-hmm.
They know more anyway, but there's still a big gap between what they do know and what they probably should know.
Yeah. I mean, that's the natural evolution of a sport. Is that when it's like you said, when you started, very I guess way less people doing it.
Yeah.
And way less good coaches involved in it. And then as the scene grows, there's more people in it. Obviously, there's a need for more coaches, and the standard will go up, and people will try to get ahead. So, I was saying this to Josh earlier that you have done what seems like every course have done.
Pretty much.
Yeah, every time I ever say something, you're like, yeah. So when I did mentoring with this person, or I did this course, and I'm just like, fucking hell.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you can get, I've always looked at it from a case of like, if you can learn one thing from a course or a seminar or a workshop, or even just cement something you're not quite sure on, you're trending in the right direction.
Yeah,
I think as soon as you stop doing stuff like that, stop doing that in reinvestment in yourself as a coach, you've lost the plot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing we've always said, even like when we've run workshops and stuff, is, and Wilbur, I think we had this conversation last Friday, and it was more or less around the fact that like you're going to go and do a course, or especially once you become a little bit more of an experienced coach and you do a few courses, you get a few things on your belt, get a bit of experience on your belt. You're never going to go and do a course that like absolutely fucking blows your mind and changes the way you perceive everything and anything like that. But there's always going to be those like one or two little nuggets of information that you just like, that's perfect. Or as you said, like cement something you've thought previously and you just just needed to find some more evidence on it, or whatever the thing might be. Is it's like, it's not going to blow your mind, change your whole life, but there could be one or two things in there that really make a good impact on you.
And as well, like there's so many ways to skin a cat with this stuff. You're always going to gravitate towards people that align with those beliefs that you've got as well. But putting yourself into a position as well, and doing a course that maybe doesn't 100% align with what you do, it might be able to challenge it might enable you to challenge your own beliefs about stuff, and maybe you might find a better way of doing it, or you've now got a tool in the toolbox for when what you would normally do isn't appropriate for that person. Like, normally speaking, I would always program, typically your most valuable work, like your SBD stuff, towards the start of a session, and then it comes to accessories.
Mhm.
Whereas we picked up a client while we've been traveling, while we were in Sydney, and she has been in quite a bit of pain. But she wants to do a powerlifting competition. She's always kind of pulled back because she's always been in pain and whatnot. And we just flipped that on his head. We put some stuff before it, underloaded the SBD work, and did 1 or 2 accessories after that. And she's now starting her peak into a competition, and she's pain-free for the most part. She gets a little bit of issue somewhere else, but nothing during training. And she squatted an all-time squat PB today at 6 RPE with no pain. It's like, fuck yeah, now we're talking.
Mm.
And that's 6 weeks later or whatever it's been, however long.
Yeah, strength training can be like when you have somebody that can actually, like when you can effectively get work in.
Yeah,
it's not very complicated.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it doesn't. You don't have to do all this crazy math around like how much exact volume and how much exact intensity and what exact variations and stuff like that. Like it's fairly straightforward, but it's typically that first bit that's harder. Is in like how can I arrange these things so that this person can get it done.
Yeah. And also, like, there's no hard and fast rules. And I think people come into it, particularly early on, they look for hard and fast rules. Everything we talk about in this sport it's guidelines. It's like that you shouldn't have to do it this way. I mean, there's going to be some things you probably don't want to be doing. Like, you don't be squatting with your heels off the floor. But
Sissy squat.
yeah, obviously. Knee over toe stuff. And with that, like, there's no hard and fast rules. It's all just like, okay, is this appropriate? And almost see what happens. You're not going to like tail guesswork. Like, you're going into something blindfolded.
It's not full guess. No.
Yeah, but you also, the human body is unpredictable enough that you don't really know for certain what's going to come out of it.
Yeah. It's more educated.
Yeah.
You're not really just throwing shit at a wall hoping it sticks. You're
That's a good way to put it.
Aiming at the wall in particular spots to be like, okay, cool.
And you're either going to be closer or further out from the center of that target, depending on how well it's executed.
Yeah.
And also, was it really that appropriate when it comes to the day?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I think as long as you have a sound justification as to why you're doing X, Y, Z in terms of like all the variables and all that other things. And like you said in that example, like it, in theory, without giving any context to it, it wouldn't make any sense. You'd be like, well, why would you do that? It makes no sense. But like if you can justify it and give a good reason toward it, and very importantly, like have some way to measure whether that thing is or isn't working, then it's about all we can do.
Yeah. I say it to my clients all the time. Like, there's never a reason why something's in it. There's never no reason why something's where it is. Everything has to be able to be justified. And if you can't justify it, you don't need to do it.
Yeah.
But like as well, like you can build. I've called it a couple of times like Shrek training. You put layers onto it like an onion.
Yep.
And the more layers you build onto the training, the easier it gets to be able to move things around and get the most out of it without having to do 20 exercises in a session. By putting layers onto stuff, you can let other things feed into each other. And again, it just takes that time and practice and being open to other ideas as well, which you're only going to do by learning courses, by going through courses and mentorships and whatnot. There's always...
And doing reps, as in reps of writing programs and reps of working with people. And
oh God, yeah. I remember when I first started, I'd sit at home on a Sunday night, and it's very riveting. I'd sit and just make up programs for people that don't exist, and try and come up with like problematic issues. And like, right, okay, if you get something that comes in with this problem, how am I going to fix it? How can I work around this issue? It's still reps, it still counts.
Yeah,
and it allows you to be.
That's exactly what I said in terms of like just like the hard part's getting it to work, like make it doable for them. Like I might have an SBD, if SBD is the focus for somebody and that's what they really like, their main goal is that, then I might have a weekly layout that works. It suits how many days they want to train. It suits their goal. It suits all that stuff. But then they might not be very good at deadlifting. They might not be very well built for it. Plus, maybe they're just like not very skilled at it yet. They're very coordinated and it's just not technically great. So maybe those slots stay the same in the week, but we're choosing different exercises. We're scaling it so that we're meeting them at the right place, and then we're scaling the volume and intensity to meet them at the right place, so that work can be doing the job that we wanted it to do or that we envisioned to do and move in the right direction. So that's the stuff that's fucking hard. If you're just going like, here's a template, end of story, for you and everybody, every shape and size and injury, that's not good. But if you can have a template of sort of like, this is a program that works, and then it's those little modifications that don't seem that significant, but they're literally the whole.
They make the difference at the end of the day.
Huge.
I mean, the good thing about powerlifting versus something like strongman or anything like that is that you know exactly what you're going to have to do on the day. And it's not that complicated. You have to be able to do 3 sets of 1 of progressive intensity in one single day at the end of a 26 to 16 week training cycle. Yeah, it's not that complicated. You know how to get, you know where you're going. You just have to be able to work backwards from it. And one of the things I think it took me the longest thing to learn was that an exercise really doesn't matter. It's just that if the exercise itself is the correct stimulus for that person to get them to where they, from A to B.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be married to a variation. Like, a variation doesn't necessarily do all these different things, because they might have a slightly different shape bar, or they might not have the physiology or the structure that dictates that will do that thing. You go, okay, well, what's this going to do for that person? Well, is that the right stimulus? Yes, no. Then you decide, is that the right thing to be doing?
Yep. There are a lot of ways to get bigger biceps or stronger hips.
Yeah.
Or, build coordination through a particular motion or whatever. So it's just picking the right stimulus, as opposed to just going well, you do deadlifts in a comp, so we've got to do deadlifts.
Yeah, you just have to do deadlifts now. Yeah.
But we got to, it's understanding that the body doesn't perceive it as this is that exact exercise and nothing else matters. And
exactly. And almost okay, well, I need to be able to do this movement pattern. What energy system do I need to be working on to bring that up? Or what rep range do I need to be working on? And that's even those two conversations, it's kind of the same thing anyway. Reps are nothing more than an energy system.
Well, even the other day, you were having a chat to Georgina, and she was saying something about not being able to do wall balls because it was raining. And you just you don't need to do wall balls to practice wall balls.
Yeah.
You can go and do this, and this. At the end of the day, if you break the movement down, you need to do this and this to do it. So
you just have to look at what is working and then give it something that's somewhat appropriate.
Yeah.
If she's lying on the floor doing something, that's
probably not going to help her out.
No, it's not going to be as specific. You can go down the specificity rabbit hole and just do SBD for the rest of your life, but who wants to do that? There's far more to life than squat, bench, and deadlift.
Oh, that's going to rustle some feathers. People are going to be pissed off.
At the end of the day,
Dan Hart, go for him.
There will come a day where you want to do something slightly different than a 2-inch block pull every week.
Yep.
And when that day comes, if all you have in your tank, if all you've ever learned to do is squat, bench, and deadlift, you've got a lot of learning to do. So keep it more varied, and then specialize when you really need to.
Yeah.
And then keep it less specialized further out. What you're doing with your training now, Will. It's not specific, but it is specific to what you need, isn't it?
In a way, if what you mean by what I need is effort and enjoyment and stuff like that, it fits the need for where I'm at right now. Yeah, for sure. It's not always about chasing a particular 1% increment on a lift or whatever. It's and I mean, if people listen to previous episodes, they're well and truly, so I won't keep harping, but hard training is hard training. Getting the body to get better at anything is will carry over in some shape or form. Some just have there's a list of pros and cons for every exercise. Even if I take my dearest in my heart, my deadlift that I've always been good at and always loved doing, I can absolutely give you a list of cons as to why a deadlift is a negative tool for certain people in certain populations and for certain goals. that there is literally none exempt from having a con, and you just you see to know what they are. Hey,
Bosu ball squats.
What?
There's no cons.
There's no cons.
Only positives.
That's Josh. You go after him now.
But in relation to the courses and things like that, like, is there any particular education course, mentorship, etc., that you feel was more or less like one of the peaks or the highlights, or besides the Nexus mentorship, of course, yeah.
And then I think where first proper course I did after COVID was PSL1 prescript, and that was like a real game changer in terms of how to apply anatomy trains. I remember speaking to Jordan in Boss of Bosses 3, and he was like, yeah, go and read this. And I read anatomy trains. It was not a great read. It was thoroughly exciting. And but applying that, what prescript did really well was they taught you how to apply that stuff. I remember years ago doing a seminar weekend with Bass. That was a really good course that taught you okay, this is how you really want to think about dynamic correspondence as you go through blocks of training, and having almost like a seamless approach, that flow through. But then I think I'd probably say the main one though was probably, I would say, PSL1. That would be a great course to be starting with.
Trying ideas together.
Because as well, if you don't understand what the body does, you can't possibly hope to train it.
Yep.
And and there's still so much of muscle isolation stuff, whereby they think that muscles work in isolation. And the sooner that idea dies a death, the better I think the industry will get.
But it's where you need to start. And this is how education and learning happens. And it's the same if you look at any education system. Like, we all went through school.
Yeah.
We all did math. And we all, started with our plus and minus and times tables and order of operations and all the basics. And then as you get up and up and up, and not that I went to uni or whatever, but so I'm sure you guys have done higher math than me to some degree, but
no.
But anyway, but when you get to even at the end of high school, you're starting to learn about math theories that kind of shit on all the rules that you learn earlier, and you're like, hang on, well, what the fuck? Why did I learn that shit then?
It's always the case though. There's layers to it. You need to know what the body does. Like, when we did our mentorship for our clients last January, we went through, right, these are what the muscles do. And then we went, right, now let's put them all together and put them into a sequence of with these muscles, they can achieve this outcome or these outcomes, or they resist these movements. So it's breaking it apart into its individual pieces and then putting them back together again as a whole picture.
Yeah, and then almost breaking it apart again, because you go you can go oh, this muscle does that, and then you go one step deeper and go, this is how they interact together, and then another step deeper, this is how they interact together. But when joints are in different positions and things change, and then you add injuries on top of that and life experiences on top of that, pain, and then it just ends up being a real it almost gets to a point where it's fuck, there's just so much going on here. You can't possibly account for everything at once. It just literally is just too much. And we don't even know
order of operation.
We don't even know about the body. There's so much we don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Sports science is so young and incomplete, and a lot of the time fucking bullshit. So
our sports science degrees were really worth it. They were a good use of time.
I mean, I'm so glad I didn't stay on doing my first degree and I moved straight across. So I got there and I was like, do you know what? The only thing I was good at school was physics. So I'm going to go and do a physics degree, and I'm going to go and become a physics teacher.
Fuck yeah.
I would have been eaten alive in a secondary school as a teacher.
Yeah.
I would.
Oh, yeah.
I would not have lasted a week. So I am glad I went to go and become a PT instead.
My goal
Adults
was
are
to
so
become a
much
high school
easier.
PE teacher.
Really?
Yeah. I was like, I like PE. I could teach it. And then I remember my PE teacher in grade 12, when I nearly finished, he's like, don't. He's just like, don't.
Wow, what life advice.
He's like, don't do it to yourself. He's like, it's just getting worse as a teacher. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm off.
What inspiration as a
he had good intentions behind it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
he was like,
maybe
he was basically just saying,
depressing,
don't don't do that. It's going to be a shit decision in the future.
Okay. Yeah.
But here we are.
But yeah, yeah.
Now we're on a podcast all together.
But yeah, you have to start by learning things that are like almost wrong. Because, but like you have to, because you need to understand the basics first, because you just can't get. If you were just like fresh out of school, you knew nothing about exercise, and then I said, it's just, everything affects everything, and it's a tornado of shit, and like all we're trying to do is like, the other day I was explaining this to somebody through like planes of motion, in that like when you go through your cert 3, 4, or you go through like your early learnings, like you literally, like you have to start with them separated. You have to go, this is transverse frontal sagittal plane, and this is kind of what they are, and this is what they are. And then when you get a little bit more knowledge behind it, you're a little bit more confident with that, we're going to shit on that idea completely and go like, that's fucked. You know what? None of them, they all interact and go together, and they never happen in isolation, and that's a shit idea. But like, you had to learn that before you realized it was a fucking shit idea. You know what I mean? So like, well, not a shit. You know what I mean though?
Yeah,
it's like
100%.
it's all wrong, but like you need to go through the stepping stones to understand and to learn it and to level up.
You need to learn it in its pieces before you can put the puzzle together.
Yeah, exactly.
It just needs to be separated so you can understand this, to understand this, to understand this.
Yeah, because if you try to start it all,
then when it all comes together and you're like, none of it works, but it fits together somehow.
Same with learning an exercise. If I just said to you, oh, hey, we're going to learn squats today, and here are the 50 different pieces of a squat that make it work. Now, if you just go execute that, you'll be right, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to run you through everything, what your fingers are doing to your toes, to your knees. They'd never come back.
It's just too much to think about. There's too much going on. You're never going to get any of it right because your mind is just like completely scattered.
Yeah.
So you need to start by doing a kind of right squat and really overthinking it maybe. Or, if you're a smarter coach, picking the right constraints and allowing people to kind of express their movement and kind of get it right in a way that, or within the boundaries of good, like understand kind of good enough, and understand at the start, you're not strong enough to really fuck yourself up. So not good is okay at that point. Yeah. And then over time it develops and you can start to think about individual things, and then eventually not think about things because now you've got it down. So like it's the same in exercise as well. Like,
and as well, like down over time, like you're never going to have the same technique on day one as you're going to have in 3 years' time or in 5 years' time, because you're going to be a completely different person by that time. So you're going to have more muscle on you, hopefully. You're going to be in better shape, hopefully. Hopefully.
I don't know. I went back to the old gym I used to train at recently, and there's some people there who haven't changed in a few years.
Yeah.
And like if you saying that this technique or this one cue or this is the way to do it, it's such a zoomed in, there's only one way to do it approach. It can't possibly be true.
Yep.
But learning to, if you can zoom out enough and know, right, okay, well, when this person was, 65 kilos, that cue might have been appropriate. But now he's 110 or 120 kilos. He's a completely different animal now than what he was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to as well is like as coaches, we tend to have biases towards certain things. And I think more coaches need to realize that like you need to be more subjective in the way you look at things. Like you can't have an attachment to things because, as you said, you'll have people come in and they throw everything out the window that you know. Yeah. You said it before, like if they only know SBD, they can't teach anything else, they're fucked. But if they only know one way of doing something or, they might know variations and shit, and they're like, well, this is the only way to do this stuff. Yeah. And then they have some person who comes in and they're like, fix me. And they're just like, I can't fix you. Like,
I've tried my method.
My method works with everyone else. So it must be you that's the problem. It's like, no. The person's not the problem. You just have like an inherent bias to one thing and you're not willing to change that for anything.
The program needs to work for the person, not the person work for the program. It's not a meat grinder approach. You don't chuck them in and hope that 1 in 10,000 comes out. Like, it's not, we're not the USSR anymore.
What? Let's change
direction first.
Going through all these courses, like you like if you signed up for a course or a mentorship or whatever today, something to further educate. I don't know if you have anything in mind, anything you've seen that piqued your interest or whatever. But what are you trying to like? What makes you gravitate and pay, or what makes you sign up for a course these days? After doing so many and having so many coaches and everything, like.
I would say I'd look for what gaps are in my own knowledge first.
But there wouldn't be that many anymore. Like,
so, there's definitely some things like I'm going to do a.
We've always got things to learn.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to spend a bit more time looking at endocrinology because that's not something like I know too much about, and it's definitely a weak point. And understanding that level of like the interplay between hormones and things like that, going another level beyond, that I think will be really helpful, and it'll give me another population that I can help, or from like loosely anyway, can actually understand what's going on a little bit more, which means that when something happens, there's an answer, or there is a more likely thought process to getting an answer.
Yeah.
But looking at what gaps are in there first, and then the main thing that's going to make me buy into it is who's running it. Does this person seem too salesy, or are they salesy enough, but you can see that they're coming from a point of view of like, okay, yeah, they really actually do know what they're talking about, and they're a genuine person. I'm not going to sign up for anything whereby it's just pure salesy, because that automatically will put me off.
Yeah.
So I've been there and done courses like that before, and they've been terrible. Because it's all about getting people through the door, because it's over glamorized almost.
Okay.
Whereas, like, if it's a genuine person on the other end of a screen going, yeah, okay, this is really what we kind of look at, and it'll look more genuine. You can tell that when you look at a video.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can see which courses are like genuine versus.
We can look for things to back it up, but there is also pitfalls there as well. Like, I would agree with you that it's mainly the people running it that I'm looking at, or the company, whatever it is. And yeah, the sales tactics can definitely be either something to look at.
Yeah.
And then you can try to be smart and look past that and go like, okay, I'm going to look at this person's results. But then that can also be a bit of a pitfall and a bit of a skewed thing as well, because sometimes in this industry, in a lot of industries, like if a company gets lucky with a couple of athletes, and then all of a sudden they're doing with a couple of athletes, then a lot of genetic kind of really good people sign up to them, and it skews the data a bit, and you go like, fuck, everyone's good being coached by this person, but really it's just kind of a.
It's like when I look at
you can't
coaches,
trust that fully either. So
when I look at coaches, etc., like if you can, it's all very well if you can make an elite athlete slightly more elite, but can you make a average to sub-average athlete much more competitive? Like, can you take an average person and make them really
consistently?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they've got more middle of the road athletes versus one or two like outliers, I think that's a better indication of a good coach than, okay, yeah, we've got these three guys that you don't like. I think I saw a post the other day, and it's like you don't know if they're paying that person to be their advertising.
Oh yeah, it's the Wild West of the internet. That's what I mean. You can't trust a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
it can be very hard. If you take someone who's genetically gifted and just crazy, strong,
they might react to anything.
Yeah,
and they might not even be doing what they're telling them to do.
Yeah.
So then, but if they can get middle of the road athletes, or not even that, to that national level, they're not going to win, but they're able to be competitive within the top 15, maybe say.
Yeah.
You know they're doing something right.
Even that can be difficult though, like, because you don't know out of the hundreds of people that's going through this source.
Yeah.
They're only showing you the few good ones. Good. So that can be, for me, it's more when I'm looking at it, it's more like just the person running it or the people running it, and the way they speak, and just if I'm like just interested, like something like how somebody lays out sets and reps, or like picks their exercises and stuff. Like none of that's going to be, like Josh said, like brand new, groundbreaking, like fuck, this is crazy. But they can think outside the box a little bit and have a couple of thoughts to make me think.
Yeah.
Like before I sign up, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. And then I'll tick over it in the back of my head for a bit more, and it'll like just, if it can pique me in that way, then that's what's going to get me to like jump in on something like that. Because like Josh said, I'm looking for those couple of like nuggets, or those couple of little odd thoughts off the path that are just not straight out of a sports science textbook or whatever, that are real world.
Almost looking for a free thinker.
Yeah, those are the things that interest me these
just
days.
A different perspective.
Yeah.
To give you a different perspective, because at the end of the day, it's that you could look at the same thing 10 different ways from 10 different people, but it all has the same end result.
Yeah. It's not really a case of how you get from A to B, as long as you can get them from A to B.
Yeah.
Well, like since we've been here, like I've picked up stuff from you, Will. Like the total reps at a specific RPE for technical work, and it's just hard enough that they're going to get an adaptation to, but they're getting plenty of skill work in. Well, that's something I'm definitely going to be taking home with us and applying to people where appropriate. Because it's not something I'd thought about before, but more versus like fixed sets and reps. But if you allow that RPE to dictate how many reps you get per set,
still definitely cons to that.
yeah,
It's hard
100%.
to think within a set for some people. So it's like picking your targets. What is this person going to respond to?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be one of those things that you apply with the appropriate context, and that's something as well. Like the age of social media has brought in that. How much can I fit into 60 seconds? And in that 60 seconds, you cannot possibly apply all the context you need on whether something's going to be a good or bad idea.
Yeah.
And it's
hard too, because the people who are generally pumping out a majority of that information aren't the ones who are coming at it from a place of multiple context. They're just the salesy people.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've gone to put up posts and then I just don't end up doing it because I'm like, oh, fuck, for me to try and like explain the context behind this is going to drag out too much. It's like trying to find that middle ground of just enough information that they understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Just enough context so that if they can think for themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Just trying to find all that balance.
Yeah, it's a hard one to navigate in terms of coaching, but if you spend any time thinking about it, you'll probably be fine.
Mm.
It's just making sure that whatever it is you're doing, like we said before, you can justify it.
Yeah.
Got one thing.
Yep.
With UK versus Oz.
Oh.
Top 5 biggest differences that favour Australia. And we're just going to snip this, send it to Bryony.
She is well aware already.
Good. No, but just to reiterate. Hey, so we had some discussion points on the podcast that you might be interested in. Go.
Top 5. Environment.
Yep.
Climate.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. People back home, by the way, seem to think that Australia is very, very expensive.
Oh.
And we expected it to be very, very expensive.
Mm.
And it really wasn't as bad as we expected at all.
Yeah.
And like, you pay half of what we do per litre for fuel.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Go us.
It's obviously that's not like a groundbreaking reason to move here. It's like, yes, half price petrol.
That is, but you can travel twice the distance for half the cost.
That's crazy.
It's insane. Climate, environment, cost is not too bad at all. The air's cleaner, that's for sure.
That's climate and environment. You can't include that. That's like 3 of the same
environment. I was thinking like people, but okay, there we go. The environment and then
the weather.
The environment as well. Then we'll go with that. We'll ignore the slightly scary weather.
Yeah, we only had one tornado.
That's more tornadoes than I've ever had back home.
Not selling it very well. Scratch that. But you spent a nice Christmas with us, so that was like that balanced out the tornado. You see,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was hot. We had the aircon cranking,
Christmas experience.
and then Bryony and Georgina kept getting cold, so we had to turn it off. And then it went back on again once we got hot, and then it had to go off again.
Yeah.
But now you got number 5. What's number 5?
Oh.
There's much like what
I would have accepted that we're here, but
well, we said people.
Yeah, but you didn't specify.
Okay, Nexus is number 5 then.
Thank you.
Which, to be fair, we should probably move Nexus to number 1, to be fair.
Oh, there we go.
Fair
Done.
There we go. Only need 1 now.
But there are things calling you back home.
Yeah,
obviously.
100%. Like we've got a dog back home.
I was about to say that's the number 1 that I've heard.
Yeah, dog, and then we've got to organise a wedding. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, congratulations. Dan did get engaged whilst in Australia.
Yeah, we didn't ask top 5 experiences.
Yeah, we didn't ask that.
No, let's not do that. Because now I might be setting myself up to fail.
That would have been number 1.
That would have 100%
absolutely.
been number 1, 2, and 3.
And 4.
Yeah.
5 as well, maybe.
And then I think like post this as well, like we've got obviously the dog, the wedding to organise, clients back home. We've got some social things organised for clients this year. A lot of competitions jammed into the first 4 months of the next year. So I think we get back, and I think we've got something like 12 competitions in the first 22 weeks.
Yeah.
It's going to be Yeah.
A lot of weekends.
Disgusting.
Yes.
And you're coming out of our summer. Well, not really. We're peak.
Yeah, so you're
We're going to be coming out and you're going to be going in.
yeah, which is going to be nice. But like, we're still going to get home. There's going to be less than 7 hours of daylight a day.
Yeah.
That's so depressing.
Yeah. I will be back on taking vitamin D as soon as I get back home because I will be sad.
We'll be back here.
We just have to send you Australian sun in boxes.
No, because the thing is that like when we arrived, you all teased saying, "Oh, we brought the weather with us," because the first day we got here, it pissed it down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So maybe if we send our winter back to you now, it's ending. You won't be happy.
I don't want the snow.
I don't think like a centimeter of snow counts.
It
doesn't stick anyway.
Yeah.
You just end up with wet ground.
Just
And
ice.
it's not fun.
Yeah.
All good. Right. Yep. I reckon that's a good way to wrap it up.
We'll leave it here.
We'll leave it on that depressing note about snow. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for coming.
You guys,
and thank you for coming to Australia.
To Australia.
Into the gym.
To all of it. And
basically
hanging around.
derailing your whole plans of travelling around Australia to just hang out here for 7 weeks.
It's been great. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Done.
Happy days.
Thank you for listening to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned in the podcast today, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gyms based in the Gold Coast and Townsville. Make sure you follow us on our Instagram for any updates on what we are currently doing, and we'll see you all in the next episode.